Hey, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. It just came up on my screen that my phone call had ended, and I thought, well, that's odd. Okay. All right. So once again, my name's Adrienne Ackerley, and I'm your host today. To help us avoid any unnecessary background noise, may I ask, if you've not already done so, please enter your audio pin that you'll find on the right side of your screen. You simply press that pound sign, then the number listed, and then the pound sign again directly into your phone, or you can simply hit your mute button on your phone. But doing this really helps with the background noise and makes it so much easier to hear our presenters. Welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is geared to take approximately 45 minutes, as we know that your time is valuable. Once we have completed, we will open it up to a short Q&A section. So please hold your questions until then, or if you wish, you can simply type them right into your chat screen in the GoToMeeting panel. If you notice in the panel on the right-hand side, there's a small box marked chat. Just simply click on that, enter your question, and we'll address them after the presentation. Our presenter for today's webinar is Mark Stillman. Mark Stillman is a co-founder of Energy Engine, as well as president of Energy Edge Advisory Group, a management consulting firm which provides a broad range of services to participants in the downstream energy space. Mark is a student of the energy industry who continually studies the changing dynamics of this exciting marketplace to help position dealers and technology vendors for the future. Mark has a broad professional background with specialties in strategic planning, finance, product hedging, and executive management. Through these webinars, we all hope to shed a fresh perspective on the emerging challenges facing our industry, stimulate a meaningful dialogue, and sometimes even challenge the conventional thinking of attendees. Mark, on over to you.
Adrienne, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you to everybody on the phone for joining today. And of course, thank you to the folks at VPE for allowing a really necessary forum during a very challenging time when we all can't get together and shake hands and have a few drinks. The plan today is to have a panel discussion. Adrienne was reading our canned introduction. We do a lot of webinars with the Energy Engine business. This is actually not a short Q&A at the end. We have the honor of a couple of really smart people to be on a panel today for us. So we're asking that all the folks who are on the phone today through the chat feature on GoToMeeting participate and interact. We want this to be your show and Julie and Ted's show and not my show. I'm going to do a brief introduction to the topic, and then we're going to immediately flip into a section where I have drawn out, based upon conversations with some folks in the industry, some topics that they would like to hear Julie and Ted talk about. And when we get there, we'll open it up to people participating, again, through the chat feature. You all should be on mute because it gets a lot of background noise. There's quite a large group of people on the phone today, and we really, really appreciate that. And it's a nice mix of propane companies, pure propane from all over the country. We have West Coasters and East Coasters and folks in the middle. There are folks who do hybrid heating oil and propane, which is great. And we're also psyched to have some of our partners in the industry on the vendor side, notably a premier marketing firm that we work with, who shall remain nameless, but I know is on the call today and usually lobs in some pretty great questions. So with that, I'll get started. We had planned this to be a session about digital engagement and the modern consumer and how they're moving a lot of their things to e-commerce and how dealers need to position for that as an industry that has relied on a traditional business model for a long time. And in some respects, with Peace and Love, playing a little catch up on the digital engagement side. But we felt uncomfortable presenting the topic without mentioning and building a wrapper of the current crisis that is facing us as an industry and as a country and as people of the global community. So we're going to try to
Somebody put us on hold. I can't tell who it was.
Can you mute everyone or no?
I can't. It's only if they put in their number. There's only two people, no, three people that haven't put in their button.
Can you mute Durable?
Oh. Ha! It was him.
All right.
Sorry, everyone.
Thanks to Ian and Andrew for helping out with that. All right, moving on. So we definitely wanted to wrap in the current crisis that's facing us and how the acceleration in digital commerce is impacting the fuel industry, and how this at-home consumer, which we have all become, will take a lot of these habits into future endeavors with business, certainly in our industry. So like I said, I'm going to go through a couple of slides very quickly and then get to Julie. But before that, we would like Julie and Ted to introduce themselves. And Julie, why don't you give us a quick blurb about your background, about Blue Ox Energy in New York, and some of your experiences with digital engagement and consumer engagement.
Sure, thanks, Mark. Well, I'll start by just saying you won't have an issue with me playing on hold music, but you may have an issue with children screaming in the background. So if that happens, I apologize ahead of time. I've tried to bribe them with an Xbox for the next hour, but we all know how that goes. So my name is Julia Miller. I'm the Vice President of Business Growth and Development for Blue Ox Corporation. We're located in upstate New York. We are an energy company. We do propane, we do fuel oil, kerosene, diesels. We also have a full service department, and we own and operate a chain of convenience stores. So I am over the sales and marketing branch of all of those divisions. And I've worked with Mark here for a couple years. About 4 to 5 years ago, we embarked on our technology journey and really have been amazed at how it's evolved around the customer experience and how we were able to kind of get ahead of the curve and how that's playing out for us now. So I'm sure we'll talk about some of those things a little bit in more detail throughout the presentation. But looking forward to sharing, what we've seen success on and the things we've done over the past couple of years.
Mark, you there?
Okay. All right. Wow, this is going to be the one time in the last 10 years that we have endless technical difficulties. My apologies. Ted, why don't you take over from there from Julie? Sorry about that.
No problem, Mark. Happy to. I'm Ted Jeffcoat. I have just under 46 years in the retail heating oil and propane space. A little better than 25 of those years has been with either publicly traded master limited partnerships or publicly traded companies before the MLP organization type was in the popular mode. So I've worked for small marketers, I've worked for large marketers, I've worked for marketers in between. My background overall started off in the accounting and finance end of the business, but I quickly gravitated to operations longer back than I can remember. So I appreciate the opportunity to be today, and hopefully I can add some value to this discussion.
Great. I'm sure that you will. So very, very quickly, my background is that John Vrabel, who's on the call, who just put us on hold with that lovely music, And I and Adrian have two businesses. We have the e-commerce business, which is what we're talking about today, which is a software company for fuel and propane dealers. Some of our customers are even on the phone. And we also have an advisory firm and consult for mainly technology companies in the space, from midstream into downstream, to help them align better with dealer needs. I was not born and raised in this industry, but I've been in it since 1995. I've worked most of that time either for or consulting for technology companies in the space. My background is in investment banking and finance and building technology companies, but I did spend about 6 years of my career early on in this industry working for two of the largest majors. So I definitely know the words to the song and the melody, and not just the words to the song. But I don't pretend to be the folks on the phone who have been in this for generations. But I think the three of us today will be able to address a whole bunch of needs. I'm going to run through the preamble here in 5 or 10 minutes and then get right to the panel. I want to give everybody a chance to talk, meaning Ted and Julie, and then also let the folks in the audience. First, I really do want to pass along a heartfelt thank you to fuel dealers. This crisis has presented really completely unimaginable, unforeseen challenges for this country. And some people have the luxury of working at home and not being on the front lines of this, but fuel dealers are not one of them. Propane and heating oil, gasoline at C stations is epitomized as essential. So all of you were forced to adjust and continue doing the things that you do. You have a long history of showing up during a crisis and in disasters and hurricanes and blizzards. So we really do, me included, thank you all for being there. I was talking to a couple of my neighbors in New Hampshire this week, and just really, really happy that our energy companies were there for us when things got really tight and people were trying to stockpile fuel and phones were melting off the wall. So again, great job to all of you as frontline responders in this process that we're going through. Yeah, it's an unimaginable world. That picture there is, I have a 15-year-old daughter who's at school downstairs in the dining room, and she said, it feels like I'm walking down a long, dark road, Dad, and I can't see the end of it. So that picture kind of captures the mood that we all seem to find ourselves in. It's a little bit like 1984 Orwell or science fiction. I never heard in my 56 years on the earth the term social distancing before, which has really disconnected us from each other, and it's disconnected us from businesses and people that we rely on in traditional ways. And it has sort of broken down the traditional ways of doing everything, from going to the grocery store to buying a car to buying your fuel oil for your house. And we suddenly live in a world where just leaving the house is risky. I can't leave without my mask, and I have my hand sanitizer. It's really, really crazy. And this disconnection is strange because it has literally shut down entire industries, some more than others. But we're a consumer-driven society. Not only are we programmed to consume, that's what we do. That's what our economy is all about. But it's forced us to think through, how do we buy things? When do we buy things? Why do we buy things? What is important to us? What isn't important to us? When you go into survival mode and we're all sort of, bargaining our last chip for 3 ounces of Purell or a package of toilet paper, clearly as consumers, things have really, really changed. You're hearing this term, again, the COVID crisis has created a mountain of new phrases and terms. Dynamic reprioritization is what they call it. Sociologists are calling how we all quickly had to reshape our existence. And those profound changes in everyday life, the real-time shifting of priorities, we can't be creatures of habit in a routine anymore. We have to totally rethink our consumption. As consumers, how, when, where, why do we buy things? What do we need? What do we not need? How valuable is this service or product I'm getting? Value, if you look at the research that's being done, there's mountains of it. And if you go looking forward to talk to your marketing firm about it, consumers are obsessed with value. That does not mean they're necessarily obsessed with price, but they are really looking at the value story more than ever. So we have to be focused in on that. And I think as it relates to the audience today, who do we rely on for those must-have things? suddenly we're living in a world where we took so much for granted, but those must-have things in our everyday life, food, energy, gasoline for my car, really, we learned very quickly that people we do business with are either going to show up or they're going to let us down. And there are things like energy that, we can't be let down on. The good news is that, fuel dealers are well positioned. I've been thinking to myself a lot in the last couple of months about the fact that, we're, another term, contactless everything now. What does that mean? The fuel dealers have been in that world for a while, right? Other than service technicians, everything that you do for your customers is largely done in an opaque way. That's really, really important because there's not a lot of huge adjustments that have to be made for your customers in terms of how they actually get fuel and propane. Yes, your service technicians need to be more careful than perhaps your salespeople do, but largely you can operate. So that really has positioned this industry well, which is why you've seen not only a lot of great positive feedback from consumers with fuel dealers in the last couple of months, but dealers feeling really, really empowered by their ability to show off the value proposition that you've had for generations and in some cases 100 years. We know that energy is essential, that we covered. I used to think to myself, how many times can I see the words reliable and security on a brochure from a fuel dealer and it starts to lose its impact? Well, we're in a moment now where it has regained its impact. Those things are really, really important. I think your customers know, they see your trucks, they have had your experience in the past during times of whether it's weather driven or market driven, that you show up with your product. They know the supply chain for energy is strong. It's one of the essential strategic supply chains in the country. We know it's stronger than the paper towel and toilet paper supply chain or the chicken supply chain, or for some reason, the tortilla wrap supply chain, which I can't seem to find anymore. And dealers are local, right? Again, if you look at some of this consumer research coming out of this crisis, there's a huge push towards the local business. Now, if you're a large company, it doesn't mean that you have to be a small mom and pop. That's great. But if you have a local presence and there's a sense of reliability and security in doing business with you, that's a really important part of the value story for consumers. But adjustments are needed. This is where I always say that I'm not being a critic. I'm trying to just be a little provocative and get dealers to think. Although people want to argue about these when I'm in person, and they certainly do, and I love doing it, a little tougher in this, but my heart is in the right place, right? So dealers really do need to adjust, right? The online consumer engagement, the digital consumer, is not a strength for us. It's a weakness for us. We have not done a great job as an industry adopting consumer technology. We do have portals out there, mainly just for payments, which is not what consumers are looking for. They're looking for full journey self-service. Those things need to be strengthened. And if you look at and talk to customers or look at some of the surveys that dealers do on their own, customers are really frustrated in the fuel industry by a lack of technology that they can use to manage and control their relationship. So this digital first concept, which means as a consumer, when I look to buy something or do business with someone, I think I'm doing it digital first. I'm not going to do it with phone and mail or even email, which my daughter says is 10 minutes ago all the time. I need a digital first business, and we're playing catch up with that as an industry. Like I said, we do a lot of these presentations, and there's only about 35% of dealers in the United States have a portal. That's not a lot, and the vast majority of those are using it for payments only. If consumers are looking for an e-commerce relationship like they get from Amazon, it's very tough to find in this industry, although there are certainly dealers doing it, and we have one on the phone today. We know that e-commerce is the new normal. We know that if we're buying hamburgers and French fries for curbside from our smartphones, then e-commerce is here. It was already on the rise. It's universal now for everyone and everything. It's the first thing we think of And even senior citizens who a lot of fuel dealers think don't go on the internet. First of all, that's a myth, because 80% of senior citizens go on the internet every day. It's an underserved part of the digital market. But they are driving force right now. They are using the web for e-commerce to do business with people more than any segment, clearly because they are a very vulnerable population. So just to wrap up sort of the context for this, how does it relate directly to your business? Well, as an e-commerce cloud-based company, we have access to data for hundreds of thousands of fuel customers across the country by way of our clients, and we don't do anything with that data except look for trends and patterns. The impact of the COVID crisis, the impact of this e-commerce acceleration is already there, right? My partner, John, who's on the phone, calls it this COVID state of mind, right? That we know that the online engagement is improving results for people in their business, certainly with digital stuff. We know that consumers want a digital engagement with everyone. It's sort of becoming automatic. We also know that it's all about communication. One of the challenges with a portal is it's hard to have a relationship with the consumer. They're putting stuff into a portal, but nobody's really saying anything back. So e-commerce is a way to have a bilateral communication between you and a consumer in an automated, unattended way. Consumers definitely want communication and not just to do stuff. We know that 24/7 is where it's at, and we know that mobile apps are what's driving sort of the reorder and the customer stickiness in the e-commerce world. As an example here, since the COVID crisis began, within our network of hundreds of dealers and locations and hundreds of thousands of consumers, we've had a 33% jump in orders in gallons. A lot of that was that sort of stockpiling mentality. A lot of it was the great price that sort of was one of the oddball positives to come out of the situation. I think the most compelling metric is online registrations improved by almost 70%. Now, this is a number that grows by 20% or so a year, every year for an established e-commerce fuel dealer. But to see almost a threefold increase over the baseline shows that there were a lot of customers out there looking to establish a relationship with somebody for fuel and wanted to do it in an e-commerce way. Those are new customers for the dealers in our network. So you got to think of a registration as a gain, to use the industry vernacular. So to lead into the panel, and then we're going to turn it over to them and you. I saw these three questions the other day in an article, and it found it to be very, very compelling, right? So how are you providing help to consumers as their needs evolve? That's sort of a baseline question anyway, but in this situation, when needs are evolving in a dramatic way, unforeseen, unpredictable, nobody has a strategy book that has the COVID crisis in it. What are you doing every day to evolve with them? The 24/7 consumption cycle, we are seeing thousands and thousands of orders across our network every day for fuel, heating oil, and propane at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what people are doing, but they seem to be wanting to do things in the middle of the night. Maybe it's insomnia from stress. And then most importantly, and I think this is where I'll lead into Julie as to kick off the panel side, is how are you sort of embracing technology? Everybody has upped their game during the COVID crisis in terms of online experience. Everyone, including mom and pop restaurants down the street from my house, suddenly have amazing platforms to do business with them. That bar is going up. What are you doing? What technology are you embracing? Because even though it might feel like we're not to use a terrible pun, but inoculated from the forces that are going on now because we're in the sort of full service automatic keep fill business, we're not. Consumers are going to take the habits they're developing now. They're going to keep them forever, and they're not going to have a lot of patience for those who aren't keeping up on the technology side. So with that, I want to get into a panel discussion and audience questions. Adrian and I are going to do our best to monitor the chat. So be patient because there's a lot of folks on the phone today, and we'll try to get everyone and not kill the entire hour here. Julie.
Hey, Mark. Before you continue, I just want to ask, we do have some background noise. Somebody's multitasking and typing away and moving, shuffling papers. If everyone could just please hit their mute buttons so that we can all hear Mark speak, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. We appreciate that. Julie, so Julie is an executive for an energy company in New York State, and we've known each other for a while, and Julie has helped out in these panel discussions before. And one of the things I'd like her to talk about is that she comes from a multi-generational fuel business. It's a fairly large one, but a multi-generational independent business that really didn't have a lot of technology in place. It was running on kind of 80s era type technology in their business, certainly on the fuel side. And Julie came in as a young professional and tore the place apart and literally put in what I see as an industry-leading ecosystem of customer-facing digital technology. So Julie, maybe you can talk through for the audience, and perhaps there'll be some questions, what was the catalyst for that project? What initially, when you got into your role there, did you say, hey, I think we need to tackle this digital piece? Why don't you take us on that journey?
Sure. So when I, came into my role at Blue Ox and started assessing, how we were doing business, one thing that really I kept saying to myself over and over again is I would go to do something that I naturally thought I should be able to do, and the software wouldn't allow for it. Even on the convenience store side of our business, we were using a software from 1992 that you couldn't even use a mouse in it. You had to use the arrow keys to navigate. And I became so frustrated so quickly because in the era that I have been part of the business world and my own experiences, those things were just not anything we had to deal with anymore. We had moved past that. So that really started a catalyst of events of identifying all of our software needs. We did start with the back-end software, which I think is pretty customary, and I would say it's probably a great place to start. We upgraded that. And then the really nice thing is when you start a technology project, if you have the right people in place, the momentum just starts to roll from there. You get one win and then a second win, and then people get really excited because the work becomes easier and they can get more done and they can better serve your customers. So customers are happy, so your staff members are happier. So once that kind of really got rolling, and all of a sudden we had the right basis for technology in place, but that freed up the ability to start partnering with other companies that offered other platforms. So for us, that did mean a portal. We are one of the smaller percentage that has a very interactive portal. And we did the same thing there with our portal. We started challenging, our customers had always used our previous portal just for making payments. Well, that wasn't acceptable anymore. They should be able to do a pre-buy, they should be able to do a budget, and it should be easy. And then that kind of further led to, well, why can't I order my oil whenever I want to order it? We were identifying this growing trend in our market of a huge increase in will call business. And that was something that we kind of had to evolve to. We had these old school thought process of, you need to give us 5 to 7 days notice so we can make the most efficient delivery possible. Well, we found when we got away from that and started actually listening to what our customers wanted and needed, all of a sudden our business exploded. So when we started to implement tools like the energy engine, all of a sudden that rate of explosion started to pick up faster and faster. And I like to preface my part of the conversation by saying we're in a rural area. We're in the type of area that everybody says, in my area, that won't work. That only works in the big city. We don't get any more rural. Mark has been to our offices. It doesn't get any more rural than where we are. So if it's working where we are, it's working where all of you other dealers are too. You're just maybe missing the opportunity. But especially in light of COVID and everything that's been happening, having all the right tools in place to communicate to your customers, to let them know you're here, let them know what's changing in real time is really what they want for that peace of mind. We had sent out an e-blast through our engine to our customers on the engine when prices dropped dramatically. We hadn't seen a lot of activity like that in a while. So prices tanked, we send out one e-blast, and as Mark said, people are ordering in the middle of the night. Overnight, we come in the morning to 50 new fuel orders. So it's really, it enables your business to be available for people to do business when it's convenient for them, and they will respond with loyalty. The will call sector of the business is just rapidly growing. Depending on fuel type, for us, it's anywhere of 20 to 40% of our new customer growth, and we've decided to embrace that customer. They're just a customer who wants more control, and they're also willing to take on more liability. So if they would like to have that burden, then I'm happy to give it to them. That way I'm not guessing what their usage is all the time. But the things that make the engine work so well is just this constant communication. Okay, I've ordered my delivery. Well, now I paid up front. Okay, so now Blue Ox isn't worried about collecting on receivables. And then we're automatically communicating with eBlast on when these deliveries are coming and if there's changes to the order. And then, oh, by the way, here's your refund because you didn't take exactly what we anticipated you would take. With all that automation in place, it's really easy to get your staff to buy in, because all of a sudden your ability to service more customers faster, smoother, makes their job easier. Their job's easier, they're happier. The people who do want to call in are getting a more pleasant experience because they're talking to a more relaxed team member. So I know I kind of covered a full gamut of things in there. Obviously, if there's questions, we can delve deeper, but that's really where our technology journey started and kind of evolved to. And we've seen such strong results. And in light of COVID, we're expanding that onto the convenience store side of our business, where, you know, there's new platforms available now that we're exploring that will allow for curbside and for delivery. And, you know, because we're seeing this trend in our rural areas where people are just demanding this at a greater rate than ever before. So if you're not going to get on board and jump in and grab some of that market share, one of your competitors probably will, and it will just be a matter of time before you start to feel some of that bleeding. So we're choosing, you know, to get on the front end as much as possible and really make some of these e-commerce solutions available to all branches of our business.
Julie, there are two questions that came in from the audience, but I want you to cover one quick thing first. So when you got there and decided that you needed to have tools in place for the consumers that we're dealing with who are being trained by Amazon and Esurance and everybody else, what did you find when you went out in the industry in terms of tools? Was it hard to locate? I guess we often get asked, you know, when I go out looking for digital engagement tools, I don't really find a lot. There's you and a couple other people. Did you find the same thing, that there was not a lot, and how did you hone in on the right people? Because I know you got multiple vendors in there in your ecosystem.
Yeah, I did not find that there was a lot. And the ones that I did find, I didn't really feel understood what it was we were looking for. And I felt some of those solutions that were available it made it possible to do new things and use technology, but it also didn't simplify or streamline anything. And I think that's a big part of it. Anybody can plug technology in, but it's, can you use it to evolve your business to be more streamlined, again, to maybe reduce overhead staffing that's needed because you can process things more efficiently. You know, with some of these decisions we've made, we had one area where we were able to actually completely remove a position because it wasn't necessary due to streamlining. And then we've had another area where we've added a position because of growing with our customer base. We want to be more accessible to them, to the people who do want to still use that phone experience. But as far as vendors, I did not find that there was a wide variety of them. More so, I didn't find that there was a wide variety that really understood what we were trying to achieve with a full automated solution. I think that's really the piece, is anybody can basically set up a website, take an order, take a payment, but it's, can you understand what the consumer is looking for, what their pain points are, and how to smooth out that transaction from beginning to end. And that's something, you know, for us in this engagement that the Energy Engine was able to offer, is they really understood what the experience needed to be, what you needed to communicate on, what safety measures needed to be taken to make sure that things operated as smooth as possible.
All right, I'm gonna hold off on those questions because I want Ted to weigh in here. So, Ted, you said 46 years in the industry. I quite frankly did not even know that. That's pretty amazing, which explains your celebrity status amongst the dealers. But my hunch is you've worked for most of them by now.
Yeah, it won't be 46 years until for another week and a half, but I figured it was close enough.
Okay, it's impressive. So to dovetail off what Julie just said, so I mean, she came in and had to basically take an organization I think is fairly reflective of the dealer community, which does an amazing job at serving fuel customers. Excuse me, I've been talking a lot. All right. We had technical difficulties. Now we're having voice difficulties. And now there's this move to digital, and you've been on the entire journey. You clearly have been on both sides of this. What are you seeing? I know you're doing more advisory now around the digital consumer for fuel. Take us a little bit of a history lesson on what you've seen and how the industry has evolved, and maybe some of the reasons why you think the industry has been a bit slow to evolve while other industries have gone a little faster.
Okay, sure. Well, I was listening to Julia. I was reflecting when I first got in the industry almost 46 years ago, and at the time, the company, a small company that I was hired to go to work for, was transitioning from basically a bookkeeping machine, which probably most of the people on this call have never even heard of that, to an actual computer, and we actually had programmers sitting in the office day after day after day, just to do the basics, accounts receivable, everyday forecasting, and to see where we are now, it's just it couldn't be more. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just phenomenal. But it wasn't a fast transition. I mean, it was there was still the mindset that, well, all of our customers really want full service. They want automatic delivery. They want a service contract, and there's still some of that mentality now. And the fact of the matter is, while in many cases that's still true, it's declining every day. There's fewer and fewer of those customers, and there's more and more of those customers that want control. They're spending far more money now for a gallon of oil or a gallon of propane than they were back in 1974. And it's I actually came into the business just after the world crisis in '73, and then I had to go through the whole thing again in '79, which again most of you wouldn't remember. So I can remember I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, heating oil is never going to be more than $1 a gallon. It's just not possible. And I think in my experience, probably 10 years ago, I think the retail price exceeded $5 a gallon in Vermont, of all places. So it has been a remarkable journey. But to see what people are doing to leverage the technology available to satisfy customers is it's certainly borders on remarkable. But we're just really kind of scratching the surface. It's not I think we're dragging people along. I don't, other than people like Julia who, kind of, leading the charge, most people are doing it defensively rather than offensively.
That's a really good point. I like that there is a defensiveness to the reaction of the industry. And again, we're all in it. So this is a commentary on all of us, including those trying to make this change with dealers. Because it seems very reactive when we should be on the front end of it. Julie, one of the questions we had that came in for you is, how did you get buy-in, not from your team, weirdly enough, but from your customers? Somebody said that they had tried to do some digital engagement and they were excited, but the customers didn't seem to want to play ball. What is your thought about consumer buy-in and maybe team buy-in?
I guess you would have to really take a look at why they didn't, in this specific case, why they didn't want to play ball. When we launched our back end software system, there was definitely a couple pain points, but as a whole, we were enabled to do business so much quicker. We were so much more responsive to what customers needed that it just became easier to do business with us. So that's where the rewarding came in and the loyalty came in. And also having the right backend software made it so we could have more business-friendly policies and procedures, which attracted more customers. As far as our portal, I won't lie, making a portal change is partially a nightmare. But I think any technology project has, its pain points to it. But really, the biggest issue we had with changing our portal was customers changing their new login information. They kept putting in their account numbers and they needed to use an email address. So once we got through that kind of hurdle, all of a sudden, all the information they were looking for was available online. And then from there, it's kind of just a commitment to consistently retraining your customers. So you can't just turn on a portal or turn on the energy engine and then expect them to just self-manage all by themselves. Your customers have been trained to do business with you one way. You need to spend the time retraining them on the new ways that are available. Once they understand what is available, they'll take it and run with it from there, but you have to help them kind of bridge that gap. So you had a portal before, maybe you just did a payment. Well, if your new portal can do deliveries and statements or anything like that, then keep talking to them about that. Keep reminding that people are creatures of habit. They're going to keep calling you for the same questions instead of going to use the portal because you've trained them that there's no portal to use. You have to untrain that behavior. The same thing happens on this e-commerce side. The e-commerce side, I definitely think it's easier than on the portal side. We have both solutions, and we use the e-commerce site more to generate new business than we do to worry about interacting with current customers. When we were first launching it, we definitely introduced it to our current customer base because there's a little bit of a pricing advantage due to the full automation. But once we kind of gave them a couple nudges, the people who are going to jump to an e-commerce experience jumped, and the people who aren't going to didn't. So after, those couple talking points, we kind of said, okay, the groups that have moved will move. And now we just use the e-commerce business to generate new business. It's a really great way to collect email addresses, to stay in communication with people. You never know when someone's situation is going to change, when their current provider may fail them. So if you have the ability to automatically remain in front of that potential customer base, they're going to reward you with action at some point in time. But I think that's one mistake that a lot of dealers make, is they don't give it the time to retrain their customers. They just expect them to know and want it right out of the chute. But we've got customers that have been with us for 40 years. I can't expect them to know all the ins and outs of a brand new portal overnight. It's going to take some time to teach them all the things that are available, even if they're a user of technology. They may have always gone on, our electricity utility here is NICEAG. So they may have always gone online to pay their NICEAG bill because they've always been able to. If they weren't sure of that option, or even if their previous company didn't offer that, they may not know that that's an option with you as a new provider. So it's important to just keep those things in front of customers at all times to help them navigate, any changes to your business. And then if it did fail for some reason, really assessing why. Why wasn't it smooth for the customer? Why was it a pain point? There's a reason. It just is, are you looking critically at it enough to find out what you need to evolve to be more successful?
Another question just came in. Sorry, you're popular for now. We'll make Ted popular later. I was going to ask this, but one of the marketing companies on asked a question. Did you incent people to use the portal? Was there any kind of promotion or incentive that you used to push them online for whatever reason, whether that was e-commerce fuel, whether that was paperless billing or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of the incentive. I think we all know what a consumer will do to save a couple pennies. We've all seen that. I see it on the convenience store side of our business. People will drive, 10 miles out of the way to save 2 cents a gallon. So it doesn't take much to incentivize people. And that's something I think that we knew, but was confirmed with what we do with the engine. So on the portal side of our business, for example, to sign up for budget and pre-buys, we have full automation with that now. So we give customers 5 cents off a gallon to go do it themselves on the portal. So that saves me 15 minutes of time for a CSR times their payroll. That's worth the 5 cents all day long. On the e-commerce side of things, offering small incentives here or there has proven to be very successful for us. The abandoned shopping cart feature, where you go to place a fuel order, whether it's fuel or propane, and then all of a sudden you get distracted and you don't complete the order, or you got to go check your bank statement to make sure there's enough funds in there, whatever it may be. 5-10 minutes later, we automatically send you an email saying, hey, wait a minute, you didn't complete that order. So if you didn't mean to, that's okay. But if you did want to complete it, here's an additional 3 cents off. There's a lot of automation built into the Energy Engine e-commerce platform that can make communicating consistent with your customers, and that's really what yields bigger results.
Cool. Ted, I know that there's several questions coming in here. I'm trying to piece them together to keep you guys talking versus me. Ted, you've recently been involved in a project working with a really large e-commerce fuel company, so are getting a very good glimpse into consumer behavior. We're hearing more that consumers are frustrated with the lack of technology. So when I hear a dealer say that they've had a hard time convincing their customers to use digital tools, it's a little bit incongruous with what we're finding. What are you finding? Are you seeing more of consumers wanting more and dealers not having as much, which is opening up opportunities for e-commerce dealers?
Well, I'll comment that in two ways. My observations have been that, first of all, I think that the consumers are ready, more than ready, actually. Provided that the e-commerce solution is making it easier, not more difficult, to conduct business online. What I am finding from a dealer mindset is I hear questions, when we do these presentations, kind of like, can I still control the orders when they come in? We like to look at every order before it goes out, and I'm thinking, what's the benefit of that? The price is set by the e-marketing company. The piece that the marketer gets it has been predetermined. So I would think that just the opposite. They'd want something that just seamlessly creates an order in their system, and generates a ticket, or routes the ticket in whatever on whatever truck it should be on. And again, it's hard to pin down, but it's more of a mindset to me. If people can say, okay, well, I understand that this may be the wave of the future, but I'm not, still completely engaged, or I still don't completely believe it. I don't trust it. I mean, that's my observation after doing this for 6 months.
Right. Okay, cool. And just for everybody's benefit on the phone here, there's two really different models for e-commerce. And you could consider a portal e-commerce in some regards, because it is engaging consumers to do business with you. But typically portals are meant for full service customers, and e-commerce is geared towards either a transient will call if you're a heating oil company, or a sort of established will call in the propane business where you just want to cut down the phone traffic, but you own the tank, and that model exists. So as dealers, you can either handle that all yourself and be the e-commerce company, or you could use companies that are specializing in essentially doing the marketing and customer engagement and customer relationships, and then pushing those orders downstream to preferred partners in a specific geography. So e-commerce can be done certainly both ways, and it applies to a lot of different types of consumers, and allows a dealer to make a choice or do both, right? You do it yourself and you have a partner, or you do both at the same time, which a lot of dealers do. Ted, one quick thing for you. So you said during a presentation, Ted has presented with us before, and said something that the CEO of Energy Engine and my partner really got drawn to, which was, in a moment of you sort of stream of consciousness, you said that fuel dealers really have to adapt or perish, in that if your idea is to keep it going the way you think it should be going versus the way consumers want you to go, then just wait for the phone to ring for somebody to buy you, because that's really what you're aiming for. Can you sort of, not to put you on the spot, but talk through that adapt or perish sort of thought?
Sure. Well, let me just say, I've in the past 30 years of experience, spent a lot of time in the mergers and acquisition side of the business. So not only was I involved in operations, I was fortunate enough to work for several companies that were very active in the acquisitions game. So I've had, an opportunity to kind of look at, historical financial statements, and people that aren't companies, I should say, which are actually run by people, that aren't adapting, that aren't, kind of, changing the makeup. I'm seeing, attrition at much higher rates than companies that have really embraced the change. I can think of a few specific examples, which I'm not at liberty to share, but it's remarkable, and you can sell from a position of strength, or you can sell from a position of weakness, and obviously that dictates the price you're going to get for your business. Because so the reality is that I'd rather be selling from a position of strength, which means I'm seeing flat to increasing volume trends, weather adjusted, as opposed to the 5 to 6 or say even 8% weather adjusted attrition, which you're seeing in the heating oil space for these companies that aren't adjusting to the trends in consumer behavior. It's clear.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good stat. Thank you. Yeah, so I think what we're seeing here certainly is a bit of a tug of war, right? We have an industry that has a very proud history of very tactile involvement, very intimate relationships with your customers, lots of phone, lots of visits to your showrooms, and people showing up at the house and sales reps, to a world where people want to be able to do everything themselves. And they're not being trained by your competitors. In fact, they could really care less about competitors. They're more comparing the relationship that they have with you to other experiences that they have in their life. So building out a digital e-commerce system in your business, it's really, and again, I know I have a vested interest in e-commerce, but I'll set that aside for a second. It's risky to think that somehow we're going to sidestep these forces as an industry or delay too long. Certainly in propane, there's a lot of systemic challenges coming from natural gas and systemic challenges coming from the electrify everything movement that's out there. Part of that is the convenience and ease and low friction of some of those relationships for consumers. We're just trying to get dealers to see that you can provide the exact same thing and more. You can combine a local independent presence with the best e-commerce and be the Amazon of your market for fuel oil. You really need to think hard about that. You don't want to let this consumer disconnect from you. Julie, quick question, rollout challenges that you have.
There'll always be rollout challenges, but I think as long as I would, any technology project that you undergo, I would designate one key person to be the collector of facts. Because if things go sideways in any capacity and stress level rises, it's really hard to get to the root of what the actual problem is so you can solve it quickly. So I would definitely recommend a project manager for any of these type of projects. That's somebody who's really dialed into the day-to-day operations of it, understanding from beginning to end, from the business's point of view, as well as from the customer's point of view. I've been very fortunate that, I played that role on our first project, but I have other team members that I've been able to lean on to do that on the other projects that we've had. And that's really what's allowed us to be more successful, is because they work in it every day. I just manage it. So the everyday interaction is what lets me know, they're communicating with me, what's happening on the customer side, what's happening on our side, and what we're doing to evolve it. It's okay if you misstep. Customers will forgive it as long as you correct it. And I think that's just the biggest takeaway, because every technology project is different, and it depends on your personal processes and procedures for how you're going to be successful. But I would challenge you not to force your current process and procedure into this new model. Be open-minded, think outside the box, allow yourself to challenge things and think differently, think uniquely, price differently, price uniquely. Allow yourself to try, because that's the only way you're really going to be able to evaluate and figure out what specifically is going to work for you and your customer base.
Oops, did we lose Mark?
No, I'm right here.
Oh,
keep
okay.
hitting the mute. I keep hitting the mute button because that's what you keep telling me to do to avoid unnecessary background noise, which is a nagging 15-year-old. And then I forget to take it off. Julie, what I was going to say was, what have you seen with a great ecosystem there during COVID? Have you seen consumer behavior change even more? I know you've had great results in the digital side, but have you seen, even in your world, an acceleration or changes in behavior on the digital side?
I would say yes, because even the consumers who are used to walking in our doors every day, you know, we have 2 locations that are open to the public to come in and pay your bill or sign up for your pre-buy budget, any of that stuff. Those were closed, obviously, with everything going on to keep our team members safe. And so it really forced customers to have 2 options, either pick up the phone and wait on hold or go online. And customers know both those options exist. So naturally, most people evolved to online. So we definitely saw an uptick in engagement on our portal as well as on the e-commerce site. A lot more price checking going on. Even if people didn't commit to orders with, you know, the markets doing what they did, a lot of people were paying attention to fuel prices and looking to capitalize on an opportunity, even if they didn't, you know, overly need the product right now. They were willing to fill their tanks while they could at the lower price, and having the tools in place to let them do that at their scheduled convenience is really what allowed customers to reward us with their business.
Oh, cool. We're converging on the hour mark here, and it's been a lot of really great information, and I appreciate it. Ted, I'll leave you with one of the final words here before we start. I do have a couple of questions that came in that are a little on the detailed side in terms of e-commerce. But Ted, from your perspective, having been on this journey with this industry for a long time, and now having even yourself adjusted to working on the digital side and the e-commerce side of the business, is the industry ready? Are we going to be okay doing this? I know it's a loaded question, but I mean, are we ready to pull this off, to really get into it and satisfy this consumer?
Well, I think my answer is with a caveat is that, you know, the industry in general is ready, but I have to believe that the companies that are more receptive to bringing in experts, you know, not every company out there is going to have a Julia, you know, to come to step in and run the show. I mean, that's in my experience rare. You know, you've got to rely on the outside professionals that have the experience to help you. You know, you know, and not everybody needs a powerful IT person, you know, inside to help them get this done. And when you start having to write those checks, you know, you've got to be committed to the path you've chosen, or you're going to be second guessing yourself for you know, forever. But it's necessary. You know, you got to get one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's really the moral of the story here. This is we have to do this. This is not something we can debate and argue about as an industry. That we have to start moving towards this consumer. We don't want to get disconnected. Julie, I'll give you the last word before we sign off. There's been a couple of questions here. I'm going to try to jam them all into a very quick, easy one for you for 30 seconds. And we're not looking for an energy engine plug here by any means, but where do you start? Like, where did you start? Like, what did you tackle first?
I mean, we chose to tackle our internal backend software because really that opens up every other opportunity. If the core of your business is still operating with old software, then it's really hard to plug in new solutions that have true automation so they work. You know, if we had still had our old software and then tried to use the energy engine, it probably wouldn't talk to it. So thered be no automation. You really need to have that good core foundation. And when you have that good foundation, it just depends on what you're looking to do with your business. Are you looking to better serve your existing customer base, but not necessarily grow? Well, if that's the case, then probably a portal is a good next step, just enhancing what people can do and what their experience is. If you're looking to actually grow your business, probably an e-commerce solution is the better next step, because it will grow your business for you with the automated marketing that's already involved, with the guidance that Energy Engine can provide as far as SEO and website design, all those things. That's really a great solution of something that will continue to just churn leads and close sales for you, even when you're sleeping.
Great. That's awesome. Well, I want to thank Julie and Ted for their sage wisdom. This session has been recorded, and we're going to send that to all of you. And Julie and Ted's information will be there. If you want to talk to them directly about their experiences, I would encourage you to do that. They're pretty interesting people. So that will come your way very, very quickly. Just in very brief summary, thank you for your time. I know this is a crazy period we're in, and you don't have copious amounts of free time. I hope we delivered some interesting insight today and some ideas. Make no doubt that consumers are going to come out of this changed forever. They're going to be empowered. Their expectations in terms of digital engagement are going to be higher than ever. And you really need to get in line. You need to understand these new behaviors. I would encourage you to do some research, talk to some experts. What should I be expecting? What are they expecting from me? Because really, you're just another business that we all do business with as consumers that is now expected to deliver a really superior online engagement experience. And if you don't, then you put your business at risk. Good news is, and I'll end on a really high note, this industry is well. This industry is very.
Look, it must have been the house cleaners. I haven't had them there for like 2 months since the COVID thing started. So I was like, oh. There should be like a space.
I don't know who that is, but rather than delay it, we'll let her talk and I will talk. Dealers are very well positioned. We're going to be fine. We just need to get in this game together, solve the problem together. Above all, stay safe, stay healthy. And again, thank you for your time today. It's been great.